How, great, great, great. I'd like to say in the chat box, how has it been this summit so far? Today is the last day. How has it been? How has it been? Let me see in the chat box. I want to know how it's been. Our speakers, mind altering. I love that. That's why we do what we do. Absolutely phenomenal, amazing experience. Wow. Keep it going. I want to know. Inspiring, awesome. That's so great. I want to hear more, so I can give the feedback to our speakers as well. Wonderful, super amazing, awesome. That's good. Power packed. I love that. It's been motivating. Great. The summit has been impactful, highly educational, paradigm shifting. Oh, excellent. Oh, my brother Ayo. It's just been awesome. It's just been such a privilege and a blessing to have you all joining this programs every day, each and every day. You're all such an amazing audience, amazing group of people. So before we go into today's program and today's summit, I would like to let's see how many people can remember all our speakers and what they do. I want you to put in the chat box what the names of our speakers. Let's start from Saturday. Who were the speakers on Saturday? Can you just type it and let's see how many can remember? Funke Ogunkoya. Yeah, let me see how many people can remember. On Saturday, good. Ndidi Nwuneli was there and someone else was there as well. Please go on. Yes, this is Ndidi Nwuneli. There was also Mrs. Yemisi Edu. Yes. Yes, Yemisi Edu, the MD of FCMB. Amazing. Ndidi, the founder of Leap Africa. Let's go to Monday. Who spoke on Monday? So I want to be sure that Toye Bakare. Yes, the director, one of the directors at SAS Textile. How about Tuesday? Who spoke on Tuesday? Tuesday, keep it going. On Tuesday, who spoke on Tuesday? People are trying to check their phones. Mrs. Awoshika, the MD and founder of Cheers Center Group. Amazing. And on Wednesday, who spoke on Wednesday? Wednesday, who spoke on Wednesday? Wednesday, yes, I've seen Awoshika. On Wednesday, who spoke on Wednesday? Mrs. Paula Amber, Funke Paula Amber. My participants are amazing people, smart people, very good. And ED at Vivian Fowler College for Girls, amazing. And yesterday was who? Who spoke yesterday? Yesterday? Mrs. Yes, Neka Onyali Ikwe, the MD of Fidelity. But can you just give yourselves a round of applause? Amazing. I feel so blessed to have had all these amazing speakers. And today, we're going to be doing it just a little bit differently. What we have done all through the week was to bring in people like you and I who run businesses or manage institutions and who have appointed and groomed leaders. We have focused on how we develop that pipeline. But today, what I've tried to do today is to make it a little bit different by bringing in people who have been developed as part of a leadership pipeline. So you can hear from both perspectives, from the perspective of the person developing others, and then from the perspective of people who have been developed, who are potential successors. And that's the twist incident. Why am I just want to reiterate again, why did I find this summit necessary? Why did I find this topic so important? Because over the 35 years of my leadership journey, and 22 out of which I have been running my own organization, and also being a leadership coach, I'm a business leader, I'm an education reformer as well. I have seen consistently that there's this gap. We all focus on the objective of whatever institution, organization, company, NGO, whatever it is. We focus on the vision, what we want to achieve, the long-term goals, but we neglect succession planning. Meanwhile, it is said that succession planning is the only thing that guarantees the long-term success of your organization. It is the only thing that guarantees that the company, the continuity of whatever you're doing. And it always beats me, how come we never really, we're not proactive about it. We're very reactive. Again, I say about myself, I learned along the way. So building a leadership pipeline is a strategic process aimed at identifying and developing internal candidates with the potential to fill up key leadership positions within an organization. The focus of developing leadership pipelines is focusing on the internal talent you have first. And there's a, it's so important to do that. It's very easy to bring people from outside. There are times that we have to bring external people. But sometimes it's actually so much more expensive in the training, investing time, in the mismatch of DNA sometimes, in the wrong hire sometimes, in the fact that it demotivates people who are already there with you. You have built so much, you've poured so much into them, and then we don't look inwards because we haven't developed them anyway. So looking inwards, what's it going to do? Because you really don't have anybody to take over that position because you haven't done anything in developing them. So that's the whole essence of this. And my prayer is that after this summit, we will not all just go back to business as usual. We all know that saying, and I will not finish it, but it says, continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of something. So I will not say it, but we know. So I hope each and every one of us would go ahead and, just do the needful and just go back, look in your organization, look at your organization and try and see what you can do better. So I'm going to introduce my speakers for today. And I'll start with Mrs. Yinka Obafisoye. Mrs. Yinka Obafisoye is an education enthusiast and practitioner with over 20 years of teaching and learning experience. Olayinka is the head of school at Meadow Hall. Her illustrious career is born out of a passion and commitment to be an effective instrument of positive change in the education sector. Olayinka is a graduate of the University of Ibadan. Sorry, you missed Ife. Oh dear. University of Ibadan. And holds a master's degree in international law and diplomacy from the University of Lagos. She furthered her education with a postgraduate degree from Middlesex University in London. Additionally, she obtained her QTS from the National College of Teaching and Leadership, England, and pursued a master's degree in applied education leadership and management from UCL, University College, London. Yinka, as she's fondly called, is a strategic visionary leader known for her exceptional academic leadership. Her innovative approach played a pivotal role in facilitating the school's seamless digital transition from during the pandemic, as well as co-leading Meadow Hall education to become the first school in Africa to receive the COBIS, Council of British International Schools, Patrons Accredited Membership. So proud of you, Yinka. Olayinka, as they like to call her when she was teaching in the UK, is a dedicated advocate for Every Child Matters, ECM. And she holds the distinction of being the inaugural instructor and franchisee in the East London area of Stratford for Kumon, UK. Additionally, Olayinka served as the literacy coordinator at a prominent Catholic school in the UK, where she played the key role in enhancing literacy initiatives and student development. She is a certified Maxwell coach, and she's happily married with 2 sons. Can we give her a round of applause? Yinka, let me say a little bit about her. So Yinka came to Meadow Hall years ago. When did you join Meadow Hall? It was like not long after we started. And she was the year 4 teacher. And somehow, the first year 4 teacher, she was still just a teacher then. And there's nothing like just, but I'm going somewhere. But I remember that she just, I don't know, there was just something, a pull. Because I remember when she was getting married, you got married while you were there in Meadow Hall. And I remember you coming to invite me. It was a very small wedding. And you said, Mrs. Nwani, you have to be there. And then she got married and love took her away to the UK for years, over 10 years. But one thing that, and all these things matter, because one thing that struck me was even after you left, you never had plans. You didn't know what was going to happen. You did not know you were ever going to come back, but you kept in touch. You will come and visit me. You will bring chocolates. And at that time, we would discuss the new things happening in the UK, in the schools there. You will talk about differentiation, inclusion, ECM, and I will take it back to Meadow Hall. But you kept in touch. Who knew? We did not ever know that someday you would come back. And at some point, you decided, I think you would talk about, I saw entrepreneurship in you because you started Kumon. And then one day you were talking about businesses and all that, you'd like to, so I said, come back to Nigeria, come and head Meadow Hall. And it was like a joke. But then you called me later and said, Mrs. Nwani, did you really mean that? Because you're a citizen, your children are citizens, your husband, but you decided, and God gave you favor with your husband. And that is how you moved back to Nigeria to head Meadow Hall. So it's the power of relationship. It's the power. And I remember you said, yes, it's true that I mentioned it to you, but you also prayed about it. And you knew that this was the call of God on your life. So I just want to appreciate you once again. Can we just give Yinka another round of applause? Thank you, Yinka, for all you do. And then I'm going to introduce someone else who looks a little bit familiar. You're welcome, Yinka. Someone who looks a bit familiar, that handsome dude on the call. You have to be handsome because you look like my husband. So Emeka Nwani, Emeka Nwani boasts a distinguished career at Meadow Hall, where he has demonstrated commendable professional growth since joining in January 2015. People don't really know how long you've been at Meadow Hall. I believe that was where you did your youth service, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was.
In September, so that's all of 9 years now that you've been in Meadow Hall. He assumed the position of ED and COO of Meadow Hall Group Limited. Emeka holds a Bachelor of Science degree in International Relations from the University of Exeter and a Master of Science degree in Business Management from Loughborough University, both in the UK. Committed to continuous professional development, Emeka pursued the Lagos Business School course, Managing the Family Business, to last beyond the founders in 2023. Prior to that, you had completed a rigorous management accreditation program and management essential program at the Harvard School in 2021, I believe. In addition to his corporate responsibilities, Emeka launched the Emeka Nwani show in January 2024. So proud of you. He's always been a footballer at heart as well. This platform brings together accomplished individuals from diverse fields to delve into discussions about their successes, failures, and the nuances of their journeys. Emeka's expertise extends beyond the boardroom into the realm of sports analysis. As a prominent analyst on Arise TV, just tune to Arise TV, you see him there. He contributes his expertise on football, basketball, NFL, and tennis. You're an all-rounder. Emeka has also been a keen contributor to the Hindsight podcast, demonstrating his versatility in the media landscape. Previous engagements include roles as a sports pundit with Channels TV, Smooth FM 90.1. Beyond his professional engagements, Emeka actively serves on the alumni board of BIS, British International School. He's an alumnus of BIS, where he dedicates time to mentoring teenagers. His passion for guiding the next generation is evident in his presentations to both students, parents, addressing common challenges faced by the teenagers in contemporary society. And Emeka is happily married to an alumna of Meadow Hall. Whoever knew that that could happen? And I want to emphasize that. Because, they say whatever you sow, you would reap. Every time I look at how faith brought you and your wife together, who attended Meadow Hall Secondary School, it gives me goosebumps. Because if I'd set up the school that, oh yeah, another avenue to make money, I don't care, I will be reaping the fruit of my labor today. It's the same way we say sometimes as educators, you don't teach your students well. And let's say a biology teacher who did not teach the student well, and then the person becomes a doctor. And then you have to go and visit that doctor, or your child has to visit that doctor. That's what would have happened if I'd just been there and just doing rubbish. And then one day, an alumna of Meadow Hall becomes my daughter-in-law. My daughter-in-law, I know you are there. All right. So it's just a beautiful, we're going to have a lovely time today. And because it's the last day, I'm not going to be rushing off. After, I'm ready to stay back and get people to comment. Today, we're looking at two people, amongst others, by the way. If you remember, each time I've said to you that succession is not only about the leader or the overall leader. Succession is focusing on key positions and key roles. So I have a lot of roles like that and positions like that in Meadow Hall, in the Meadow Hall Group. And for some that don't even understand our setup, because it's quite different. So in Meadow Hall, we have different sections. The group has different sections. We have the education, the impact-led section, and then we have the subsidiaries and shared services. And that is where Emeka focuses on, that side, shared services, the businesses, while Mrs. Obafisoye focuses on the education. And that is why they are both here. As I said, I have other, Benga, you are there, I can see you there. is one of my leaders. So we have quite a number, directors who have been with us, some from inception. But Yinka focuses on the education part, while Emeka focuses on the businesses and the shared services. And today I've been able to, I want to show you how you can raise and prepare people. If you're lucky to have a family member, all well and good. When Emeka went to study in the UK and he did his international relations and management, he wasn't thinking of Meadow Hall. It wasn't that we planned it, that, okay, so you go so you can. I'm sure if Meadow Hall was just education path, he might not be there today. But what he studied is in line with what he's doing, which is management. And I have Mrs. Obafisoye, who is not an Owo princess, who is not family, but has now become family, who is in charge of education, what she studied, what she's experienced in. So I want to emphasize that, because sometimes we feel that succession must be a family member. No, sometimes you have nobody interested in what you're doing and you can't force them. And as I said, I really don't know. Yes, Emeka is part of the family business, but he might not be there, you know, running the other side of things if he didn't study management or if he wasn't interested in it. And so we must get away, as Mrs. Funke Amber said, from my son, my daughter must run the business after us. It is not so. So once again, you're welcome to the show. I'm just going to do some quick fire questions for you guys. Quick fire questions. My participants, my guests, are you ready? Quick fire questions. Ready? Emeka, favorite color and why? I know men don't like colors. Favorite color and why?
Red.
What? Oh, it's not clear. We can't hear you. Yeah. Okay, so while we're waiting for you, Mrs. Obafisoye, favorite color? Can you hear me? You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, Dr. Nwani, I did not hear you for a minute.
Okay,
Beg your pardon.
Quick fire questions. Favorite color and why? There's a bit of delay. Favorite color and why? Okay. You can't hear me still.
I can hear you. So,
Okay, Mecca, you go ahead. Favorite color and why?
red.
Red, why?
Because of Manchester United.
Man, I knew that. Okay, so while Yinka still can't hear us, what was the last book you read or last movie you watched?
The last book I read was
Do you guys read in this day and age?
It was about history. So it just spoke about like a page or two on Alexander, even Jesus, Muhammad, just different famous people that changed history.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, if you only could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would that be?
For me, it would be probably pizza.
Pizza.
Because yeah, probably pizza.
Okay, pizza. Okay. What's your favorite way to relax?
Watching football on a Saturday.
On a Saturday.
Football on a Saturday and having, or like just chilling with my wife.
Yay. That's great. Mrs. Obafisoye, can you hear us now? Can you hear me?
Absolutely, Dr. Nwani.
All right. So what's your favorite color and why?
Aqua.
Aqua. Okay.
Because I love the sea. I have it as my background. I love the sea and its content. So yeah, it's aqua.
Educator, aqua. What's the last book you read or the last movie you watched?
Okay, the last book that I read, I reread it. It's The Myth of Normal by Gabi Mate. He's a psychologist, and it's about normalizing what you shouldn't normalize. Very educative.
Lovely, lovely. If you could eat only one food for the rest of your life, what would that be? Pounded yam.
Chicken.
Okay.
Well marinated chicken.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. And what's your
That is
favorite
it.
way? What's your favorite way to relax? What's your favorite way to relax?
Watching comedy, singing.
Okay. Oh yeah, you sing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You do sing
I
soprano.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
I sing also, actually.
Also, yes, yes, yes. I sing soprano. We
It was
sometimes.
soprano.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So now we're good to go. Are we good to go?
Go, good to
Mr.
go.
Emeka Nwani, I will be starting with you. And I would like, everybody's waiting. They would like to hear from you. Tell us a bit about your leadership journey, Emeka.
Okay. So I think for me, it's been a very, very interesting journey. As you mentioned, starting as a young 23-year-old in 2015, January, doing my NYSC. And now I'm almost 32, I'm married. So it's been a very long, interesting journey. I would say I started, I don't want to say from the bottom, but I would say I earned my stripes, and strategically the Dr. Wani has made sure that I started in a position where I had to earn everything I got, and I acquired various skills from working in various departments, subsidiaries. So just to be specific, so I actually started as like a handling our social media accounts, which was, I'm working under the marketing manager at the point at that time. So I used to come up with like content calendars, try and come up with posts as we're trying to get our Instagram and Twitter and things going. So that was like my first role. And then I worked under like the business development manager at the time in Mrs. Okolo. Then I've worked in, I've also worked with the accounts, with the HR. So I've gone around, and it was my first real taste of a bit of management was when I became the project manager about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where that was the first time I really had to start, I had to really start developing those skills, and I ended up doing different courses at Lagos Business School, Harvard Online, to really build that management skills, those management skills. So I would say from project management, I now transition into now being the EDCO Meadow Hall Group Limited, where now I have a lot of people reporting to me. And the journey from 2015 January till now, and all the things I learned and all the different subsidiaries I worked with, I would say have prepared me for this point where I am now managing teams and having to come up with solutions that have an impact on the business, the whole business. And I enjoy that pressure, and I feel I've been ready and prepared well to handle those pressures.
Amazing, amazing. So talk about the preparation. How did you learn about leadership? What's your journey in that sense?
So I would say it started from young, because I'm the firstborn, and I was the oldest by about 8 years. So I think even like my friends would say, my colleagues, I feel I've always had a bit of that, because is this can be called firstborn syndrome, where like you always want to impress. I always want to impress my parents. I want to impress people, because I don't know, I've just always had that. And so I think my leadership journey started from then. Even with my cousins, I was always the first cousin on my dad's side. So I've always had that. And then of course you have to build it. You learn. So you actually learn, okay, I know this is what a leader does, but then you really understand the why. So when you have to take those courses and you're now doing things in a business setting, you now really start understanding, okay, this is why I'm this way, but you know why you're this way. So there's like a pathway, so to tap into different leadership skills. So I think being a Meadow Hall has helped a lot because again, having to start, for you to lead, you have to know how to be led. So I've been led.
Like that.
I've been
Yeah.
led from being 23, and so I've been led, and now I have those skills. And of course, you're still improving. I'm still improving every day, but I think my journey has improved. My journey has come from doing courses and actually learning the rhetoric and the book, as well as learning on the job and learning from your environment, which I think I did a lot because again, learning from my parents who are leaders in their own fields, learning in school, learning, taking courses, so self-development and learning on the job.
Beautiful. You mentioned something that Tony Bakari mentioned, Funke Amber mentioned, and you've also said it, learning, from so many other sources, but also learning on the job, looking at, it's almost a bit of apprenticeship, looking at what we do, and being able to build on that, right?
Exactly. So you have to, if to be successful at anything or to improve at anything, I think you have to learn in so many different facets because you can't just box yourself in one. And I think if you're intelligent and if you're willing to learn and improve, you will learn from other people, learn from mistakes, you learn from people's successes, failures. You actually professionally develop yourself. So you go to school, you take courses, you pay for courses on your own dime, you improve, as well as also learning on the job. So and again, it takes time because you can't figure everything out immediately, and it's taken almost a decade for me to get to a point where I feel confident, I feel competent in the things I'm doing.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. So what does it feel like working in a family business?
Okay, so I would say it feels great, but I would say for the people listening, and if you're trying to build someone up to fill up a senior role, I would say look out. It depends on the individual. So for me, I think it works best for me because of my personality and because of how I was raised, and again just how I am, what my makeup is. So working here for me has been great because the kind of person I am, I respect everyone. I treat everyone with the utmost respect. And from when I first came in, from the nannies to the security guards to everyone, I always treated everyone the appropriate respect, friendly, respectful, and I didn't get complacent because again, I wanted to impress. Again, being the firstborn, I wanted to impress my family. Like there's for me, I carry that pressure of okay, like I am working for my family business. There's no room for complacency or anything like that. So I think certain people, it might not work for everyone because you can't get complacent for sure because no one is going to shout at you because they know that, they know who you are. So you might not have that, some people might feel you might not have that rigorous development because you can't be shouted at, you can't be yelled at, you can't be fired per se. So if the character is not someone that can handle that, then it might be a problem. And my dad actually was worried about that. And I actually applied to a job in Huawei in maybe like 2016 because my dad is like, he's too comfortable. But like when I went for that interview and I saw like hundreds of people on the floor just typing behind laptops on their desks, I was like, this is not for me. For me to be able to succeed at something, there needs to be something attached to it. So just typing behind a desk and not really seeing the impact of what I'm doing. So for me, this worked perfectly for me because I had I enjoyed the pressure of wanting to make my parents proud, but also I can see the effects and the impact of what I do a lot more clearly. So I'm working on social media, or now I'm working on different things. You can see the impact almost immediately. But like the idea of just going to a random company I have no affinity towards or
Oh dear, the network.
and just like doing spreadsheet for myself. So I think for everyone else watching, so sorry.
Right.
Sorry, I don't know where you stopped, but
I heard
that's
something about spreadsheet. Just doing.
Yes, sorry, I was just saying. Yeah, sorry, I was just saying. So for me, being that person just working on spreadsheets for my boss, that doesn't connect with me. I need to see the impact and the effects of what I'm doing to be able to be motivated to continue to do more.
Absolutely. I remember those days you'll say, you know, I want to see, okay, so where are we going with this? I want to see the results. I want to see the outcome. So you were very much into what I'm doing. How does it show? And we must commend you. You lead the marketing team, for example. Most of what we do on social media, you know, it's part of what you supervise. And thank you for all you do. Mrs. Obafisoye, are you ready for me?
I'm ready, Dr. Nwani.
All right. Could you tell us a bit about your leadership journey?
Okay, so my leadership, first, well done, Dr. Nwani. This has been an absolutely phenomenal summit, a lot of learnings, and thank you to all the participants. So yes, my leadership journey started in England when I assumed the position of the first Black, the first Nigerian to lead literacy in that school, St. Ursula's Catholic school. There was a lot of pressure because not only was I the first Black, at that time, I was the only non-white in that school. So I knew that I did not have the luxury, you know, of making silly errors. And then I moved on to, you know, carried on with my work, excellent, outstanding classroom practitioner. And then I migrated, a very, very senior leadership role. And yeah, so that's the summary of it, Dr. Nwani. The summary of it.
So then for you two, I'm going to ask this question. You were in Meadow Hall, and then you got married and left, and then you came back as a head, now leading people in ways, you know, because that's really what happened, with whom you were peers. How difficult was that?
It was initially, it was almost impossible, Dr. Nwani. It was very, very difficult. But we were able to, you know, find our way through. And we're able to, you know, sort out a lot of our differences, understand leadership more, and just we learned to get on with it. Yeah.
I wish you could expatiate a bit more on that.
Yeah.
Tell me about your journey.
So, okay, so, you know, I got my initial degree from UI. I got a B.Ed, got a master's in international law and diplomacy, because as at that time, Dr. Nwani, I never wanted to teach. I wanted to work with the UN, and I had to get that master's done, which I did. But along the line, I discovered my calling, and I saw that I would rather teach really for free than be paid working with the UN. So I made that decision to stick with teaching. Started, you know, teaching at some point, came to Meadow Hall, went to England, got my PG Certs in primary education, got my QTS, and then I came back. So when I got back, Dr. Nwani, as a senior leader, I remember a discussion that we had where you advised that, yes, you appreciated my initial master's degree, but for the relevance of the job, I had to start another master's degree. And I got the master's degree done, applied educational leadership and management with the University College of London. So, you know, I carried on with my work, but I discovered that being an excellent teacher did not necessarily surmount to being an average leader, to be honest.
I like that.
So you know, part of my journey had to be with the fact that I endeavor to do whatever it is that I've got to do ever so well. I believe in, you know, getting the competencies that you need. And I thought I had acquired quite a few. Just before I left England, my head teacher thought I was so outstanding, and she would invite all the head teachers to come into my class, watch my lessons, have meetings with me. And, you know, I was doing so well. In the course of my career in England, I'd gone to 5 through Ofsted. Now, Ofsted is the official body employed by the UK government, you know, for quality assurance, to check schools, and I've always got outstanding. So when I got back to Nigeria, I felt quite capable, Dr. Nwani.
I know.
I felt quite able. I've always received glowing reports. I've always received, you know, amazing feedback. I'd never received, "You're not doing well." You know, so when I got back, I discovered a few things. I thought, is this the Meadow Hall that I left? I also discovered some work ethics that I thought could be better. But what did I do, Dr. Nwani? Instead of leading, I was very, very judgmental. I was not pastoral at all. I didn't even understand what mentoring was. I did not understand what it meant to build, you know, other people, you know, as leaders. So, you know, the challenges were people that we were peers. One of them actually was my mentor before I left. So I'd come back to assume a leadership position, and it was very difficult. So, for example, we had to start guided reading. And it was very difficult because the feedback I kept getting from the leaders was, you know, when do we do it? You know, there's no time on the timetable. And I did not understand part of the reasons why they were being resistant, you know. Apart from other reasons, I could also see, you know, that I did not believe in selling any ideas. It was just, this is it, do it, and that is it. And perhaps that also came from, you know, having worked in the UK, just get your work done, no excuses. Nobody comes back to say, exactly, nobody comes back to say, I'm sorry, can I bring it tomorrow instead of today? And to be honest, that wasn't the ideal because life happens. But I know that now, but then I didn't. So I remember having a conversation with you when you called me in and you said, Jinka, how is it going? And I'd set the exam papers, I'd written the exams myself, I'd marked, moderated everything myself, and scored myself absolutely excellent. And you looked at me, Dr. Nwani, and you said, Jinka, that is not what I'm getting. And I was genuinely shocked and stunned. And I thought, how can I be anything but excellent? How can I be anything but outstanding? And I thought, Dr. Nwani, you know, to be honest, for a bit, I could not fathom, I could not comprehend why my score sheet with her and with the people I was leading did not read outstanding. So she started to speak to me. And initially, I would say things like, look, Dr. Nwani, I don't even know how these people got to Meadow Hall. I don't even know who recruited them. I don't even know. And Dr. Nwani started mentoring. And a lot of those conversations will be pastoral. A lot of them would also be very tough. At times, I would leave her office crying. I would be in tears. And at times, I would understand that, okay, maybe I made an error there. And at times, I'll be thinking, Dr. Nwani does not know what some of these people do. You know, and Dr. Nwani would say that, look, Inka, people will always do things. Our reactions must be static. You know, and that was an area that I struggled with. Now, prior to coming back to Nigeria, I never heard of anything called emotional intelligence. And so Dr. Nwani would say, look, you need to be emotionally intelligent. And the thing with me is, I would always learn. And especially because Dr. Nwani had established, you know, a learning environment. It's either you learn or you learn. There are no options. And that's because she spearheads learning. She's right at the forefront of learning herself. So she's not a madam sitting somewhere and explaining. Can everybody hear me?
I think, don't be distracted. We would, it's fine. We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
we
you,
can.
Mom.
Yes.
Okay, so, so while she would speak with me, I would make notes, even though in my heart at times I would think, was I really wrong? Should I not have done that? Should I have? But I would make my notes and I would consult my notes. A lot of trainings, a lot of mentoring. I remember that I went with Dr. Nwani to the States to learn, from John Maxwell. So I became a John Maxwell coach so that part of my learnings can translate into my job. But I'll also say this, Dr. Nwani, you believed in me. You saw potential, you saw those other competencies, and you knew that I've got something to work with. So I'm going to say this on this platform. Thank you, Dr. Nwani, because you could have given up. At some point, even I stopped believing in myself. But, in between all of that, I kept learning. I would pay for teachings. I had great mentors such as Dr. Nwani. I had Kule Shorion, Leke Oda, Vusi, he's a South African, and I would learn at their feet. And I started learning emotional intelligence. And it's not something, nobody can say, oh, yes, we're 100% at it. But I know that, it's a part that I have learned. I'm still learning. Another part of my learning, Dr. Nwani, is the modeling. I know I've been called into some meetings where someone had done something quite dire, something quite severe. And I would say to myself, oh my goodness, Dr. Nwani is going to chop somebody's head off today. And the person would sit in the meeting and Dr. Nwani would go, so how are you today? And I'm thinking, how are you? How are you? How? So, so what really happened? What happened? And I would look at her, look at the person, and I'll be thinking, okay, this is another way of doing this. I also learned from two people, Mrs. Oyedepo and Miss Ekpeyon. I noticed how they would handle the same thing that I would have handled completely differently. And I thought, okay, so there's no such thing as this is the way. So whatever way that I'd learned, it was just one of the many ways, and it also was the wrong way. So, I had to submit to learning and learning and learning some more. So my turnaround, Dr. Nwani came with that scripture, that backed up on my learning, that do not let your good be spoken of evil.
Spoken of.
There's so much passion. I just want things to be done right. I just want us to get it right. But there is a how. I also remembered when you got us mentors, the senior leaders, and my mentor was Mr. Ayola. And he trained us. He said, look, we must achieve our targets, but the how should matter to us. We do not want to be leaders that, we tread on people's backs to achieve our targets. And so, yeah, it can be quite blurry. It can be quite tricky, trying to find the balance between you're being very pastoral, but you also have targets. You're also accountable, So it's been a learning journey because Dr. Nwani, you modeled emotional intelligence. You modeled it, you showed it, because you were not, and this is not me playing to the gallery. It's not about telling, it's the showing. And because you also drew me very close to the leadership table, I saw you handle things in certain ways. And I started to learn that it's all about being the servant leader. It's all about leading people. I'm at the place where I'm asking middle leaders to doing things, and I'm saying to them, what can I do for you out of this? I'm asking the middle leader, could you take that training for us? And I'm preparing the slides. Initially, I would have been waiting. I hope you bring the slide on the very day I asked you to. So, you know, it's been it's been a learning place, and I'm grateful to God because alongside my competencies, alongside my journeys, I've been able to submit to learning, to understanding that it's all about the people. It's not about the things, it's about the people, you know, and so, you know, that has been my journey.
Thank you so much, Inka. Thank you for being so open and so, you know, and yeah, again, we're talking about everything, believing in your people, giving them a chance. You've talked about using the questioning, coaching style of leadership. In fact, in the 21st century, that is how to lead now. I did a course with Stanford University here in the US sometime last year. And it is said that you don't just go by performance management appraisals, not anymore, not in the 21st century. Leaders must learn how to use coaching. As part of effective leadership, it's a lot about coaching. And coaching, when you're coaching someone, you're asking questions so that they can come to their own understanding. If I tell you this is what you did wrong, you hear me, but it didn't come from you, it will not be a part of you. But when I get you, just as we do with the children, we don't tell them anymore. Educare is about bringing forth, drawing it out of them. It's not just educare anymore. And the same thing goes for workers and employees and associates and colleagues. Let people come to their own learning. Either you work in a corporate, you know, organization, in a church, wherever, when you are developing people, it's about getting them to come to their own understanding. And thank you so much. You've talked about that, bringing you around my leadership table. We'll talk about that a bit more. Now, Mr. Nwani, I learned a lot of leadership from you because you have been able, in a very interesting way, you are able to relate leadership and football. The love of your life, after your wife, of course, and your family. You love football. And I remember my husband back then was a Chelsea fan, but you grew up because you were alone with me for a while. And you just took to Manchester United, and you took all of us, me and your siblings. So my husband is on his own in Chelsea. He's always changing clubs anyway. Now, you've been able to teach leadership through soccer, especially developing a leadership pipeline. You always talk to me about the mistakes the greatest coach of all times, as far as I'm concerned, Alex Ferguson, made. I want you to please tell us a lot about leadership and relating it to football. First of all, in developing leaders, what did Ferguson do wrong? How come Man U has not been able to regain, you know, the heights they've not been able to get? And I look at the guy, he was such an amazing coach. What happened to Man U? Can you please relate football to what the lessons you've learned in leadership and developing successors?
Okay. Yes. So thank you again. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Am I clear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So with Ferguson, as you said, and I've been a passionate Manchester United fan since about 1999. I was 7 years old. I don't know why. They just attracted me. And Ferguson was the personality of Sir Alex Ferguson. When we look at a leader, he epitomizes what a leader is and what a leader was. And it was so easy to follow. Even that I wasn't playing for him, I wanted to follow him. But unfortunately, sometimes with a leader that's had so much success, you know, and a lot of the processes and the policies we're talking about now, he incorporated in terms of having that bench strength that you talk about. You know, you have a fantastic team, but you also have replacements ready at any point in time. But at the same time, you have those replacements, but you make them feel special, you make them feel wanted, you make them feel needed. So they're ready to die for you, even though they're not starting at that point in time. but they're always ready because they know you have a plan for them. So there's that forward planning as well. So there's a player that's called Hernandez. You know, he always is down on the bench, but he will come on and score goals when we needed goals because Ferguson will tell him, "You're so important. You know, you're an incredible player, but just for this game, we might not need you, but we know your abilities, we know your skills," and he will come on and, you know, play very well. Beckham was one of the biggest stars in the world, 2002, 2003. Ferguson and Beckham had a falling out. Ferguson says no one is bigger than the club. Beckham goes, but who does he have ready to come on? He has Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo comes in. A few months after, takes the same jersey number 7, and eventually becomes the best player in the world. So you always have to have, again, that bench strength, but also understand building potential, taking time to work with people. You know, no one is bigger than Meadow Hall. No one is, like Ferguson always say, no one is bigger than the club. So if you're Beckham, a big star that has even more money than the manager, he knows that no one is bigger than the club. And if there's a player that could potentially cause problems, they're out. But most importantly, you don't just let them go. You have someone that can come in. So the issue, the mistakes he made in terms of succession planning now, again, I don't know if it was a thing that he believed so much in his own like ability and his own like the cult of personality. Like he was almost like a god to some, you know, some people, because he was all Manchester United knew for 26 years and he was so successful. So I don't think first of all, when he resigned, he didn't resign with thought. He resigned based on, unfortunately, his wife's sister passed, and all of a sudden he says, "You know what? I'm going to leave." So there was no forward planning. He just picked a guy that he thought he saw his younger self in, and that was it. So it was a bit of failure to plan there because I feel he believed so much in his own decisions that he didn't really consult people. He just said, "This is the chosen one," and there was no due diligence. There was no like, you know, mentoring. He just chose this guy, in another Scottish guy, a younger guy that he thought he saw himself in, and that was it. And that guy was not ready. He was not ready because he was not prepared for that role. So he made a mistake. I also say I think he also he some players accuse him of loving his own voice and his own persona a bit too much. Again, because you're so successful. So again, I'm sure there are so many successful people here, you know, doing amazing things, you know, have a lot of stuff, making a lot of revenue. And sometimes it's human. You believe so much in yourself that sometimes you can almost forget, like they say, the seed that created all that came. So I think there was an element of that where he didn't plan as much because he almost wanted to be Manchester United. And like we haven't been successful since him. So I'm sure there's a reason why, because everything was geared towards him and there was not much geared towards after him. So since then, it's just been a lot of struggle. Like we've been chopping and changing different managers, because after Ferguson, it was almost like Manchester United itself died. And I don't think any leader here, your company or your business should be you. It should be it should be when you go, your company should be able to thrive because of the things you have put in place, and not because, you know, you shouldn't take any pride that without me, or they are struggling. I was so, you know, I was amazing, and when I was there, everything was going well, but now I'm gone. You know, you should be even more proud that once you go, you're even doing better. So I think that's where he made a bit of a mistake.
I love that. I love that. A lot of key points is said. Number one, he appreciated his team. He knew he had people skills. He knew how to make his team feel special. You know, he knew how to get them to play for him. And that's an amazing trait of a leader. He built an enduring bench strength because he knew when to play this one, when not to, you know. I like the emphasis you said on making them understand that there is no one greater than the team. The team is, or the club, you are not greater than the club. Now, what has then happened is he himself then did not take his own advice, because along the line,
Exactly.
he began to see himself as greater than the club, because all the things he failed to do, all the not consulting with people, not doing his due diligence, doing things out of emotions, So I know it must have been very rough for him when someone died. And then he just decided, you know, I'm resigning in 6 months and all that. And I see a lot. You also said something here, humility. A lot of our speakers have talked about that a leader must know when to bow out. A leader must know when to let other people shine. A leader must know when it's not about them anymore. But it's tough for leaders. We want to remain, you know, there. You just want to be, you are in charge. You are in charge. And you want to remain small because you can't even express yourself. You just continue to micromanage. Honestly, it's just such a beautiful learning curve that one can see from Alex Ferguson's life, because I've seen it till today for every leader on this platform. Till today, it is still a struggle for Man U. And we also said something, some people leave, let's say they're managing some key positions, they leave, and when they leave, they're happy that after I left, everything just scattered, you know, I'm such a good leader. And it's such, I'm sorry to say, such stupidity, because you are a failure as a leader when anytime you are not there, anytime you leave somewhere, everything scatters. You have failed. So it's not something to be proud of. And I wonder how Alex Ferguson feels today. How does he feel, you know, with all these things? They've just not been able to bring the thing back together, you know. But a lot of learning. I think there's the book on Alex Ferguson and his mistakes or leadership or something. It's a
Yes,
book.
there are many. Yes, there's a book on it. There are many articles on it as well. It's a case study into
A case
leadership and
study.
succession planning.
I think
And
it's a case study every organization should actually, because I've seen this guy succeed so much, and then he's left for how many years now, and his team is still struggling.
yeah,
How many
11
years?
years now.
Ah,
11 years.
such a shame, such a shame. Thank you so much for that. Mrs. Obafisoye, as we begin to, we're beginning to wind down gradually. Ms. Obafisoye, now I'm going to ask you this. You've been back for like, I don't know, maybe close to 10 years now, or even more.
Yeah.
A decade now. Now, you know, we talk about the Pareto principle. And the Pareto principle says 20% of your priorities will give you 80% of your results. 20% of, let me say in an organization, focusing on 20% of my workers or leaders will give me 80% of the results that we get. Because there's no way I can focus on this whole 100%. So the 80-20 rule, or also called the Pareto principle, after the person that developed the rule. Now, I have focused a lot on my 20%, of which you are one. The directors are part of that 20%. And for a long time, I focused around that 20% in terms of mentoring, coaching, having leadership trainings, bringing you guys around my leadership table, that invisible leadership table, hanging out with you guys. You're able to see how I make decisions, just in a way, just grooming, and you just have that exposure. Now, along the line, I realized that sometimes we focus on our own 20. So we've developed them, but our own 20 that we developed fail to develop their own 20. Yeah. They fail to have their own leadership table. They fail to show the kind of care and intentionality that I have shown them. They fail to show it to the people. In fact, they have not even decided who their own 20% is. And that is where leadership falls apart. That is how we fail to grow a leadership pipeline, because some people get so fed, but they're not passing it on. And the person, the overall leader at the top, is unable to reach 500 staff members, 600 staff members. So my question is, when we got that, because again, Ms. Obafisoye, you've been a bit of my own guinea pig as well, learning. Because when you came in, truly, I would ask you about your leadership style and all that. But I also then realized that the school had to support you a lot more in developing your leadership. And that was when we really got into it, because you came with a lot of technical skills. And technical skills do not equate to leadership skills.
No.
Absolutely not. So we also, so I'm not here saying, oh, we're just a master. Those were areas that we had to learn as we went along as well. So another learning then was I was focusing on the 20%, but then I found out that my own 20% I was focusing on were not focusing on their own 20%. So the learning wasn't going down, wasn't being cascading down. So can you tell us how you have then been able to begin to develop your own 20 and making sure that your own 20, they're all going down to middle leaders, to, how would you tell us about your development of potential leaders in education?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Nwani. So, when you look at an organization as Meadow Hall, anyone who comes in, the initial thought of us would be to see the fact that learning is indeed, not just in words, Dr. Nwani, indeed a part of our DNA. And that is because, at the risk of sounding flowery or maybe, flattery, it comes because you are intentional about learning. And you've given it to us. And what we do is to ensure that our very, very strong CPLD, our continuous professional learning and development program is viable. It's got to be alive. It is breathing. It is breathing. It's expanding. We believe in learning. We believe that it's either we're learning or we're learning. We've had to unlearn a lot of things. We've had to relearn a lot of things, and we're learning a lot of new things. Part of what helps us, Dr. Nwani, is the way we see you learn from every single person. So we've adopted that nature, and we learn from each other. Like I said earlier on, apart from you, modeling to me emotional intelligence, I was also able to see it in my team members, especially two of them. So, we have our rigorous and ever so robust CPLD program. We believe in mentoring. Every member of staff has a mentor. We also coach, which is what you've also taught us. And that, that coaching is also embedded in action learning. So you have leaders, senior leaders. We do a lot of trainings, but we also learn. We come together every Thursday in my office. We're led by Mrs. Bidemi Oyedepo in action learning. So if you can just crave my indulgence for a bit, the most recent topic that we had, which we're concluding next week, is, what is the impact of senior leaders in pupils' progress? And this is when we use coaching, when a leader is sat on that hot seat and is being questioned about what they've come in with as their own challenge. So we have coaching, we have mentoring, we have our CPLDs, we have a lot of individualized trainings, and I've benefited from that. We give a lot of clarity, Dr. Nwani, just as you do. I remember when I had all of those leadership issues, you gave clarity. I was not confused about what I was doing well, what I was, thriving at, and what I did not even understand. So, we use that with staff, Dr. Nwani. We give a lot of, but HR handles, those specific training. So the CPLD really, training the general staff, the HR, has a massive role to play. And we also have a structure, Dr. Nwani, so that in the course of our appraisals, our performance management, we have a structure where every member of staff must show evidence of having trained themselves and also being a part of the school's initiated trainings. I mean, we have our EduCamp, we have our education convention, we have the mentoring, we have our insets, we have our CPLDs. These things are thoroughly structured. And I also must mention that our CPLD actually has to do with differentiated learning. The same way we differentiate in our classrooms, we also differentiate for teachers. So we want to train on differentiation, for example. We would have a set of teachers who we've garnered evidence in the course of lesson observations that not only have they understood differentiation, they have indeed mastered it. We will not sit them down and bore them, to death or to whatever. They would have a different CPD, a different training tailored to their need. And at times it could be that differentiation. So it could be beginners differentiation, intermediate differentiation, and advanced differentiation. So we have our learning structure in such a way that everybody and anybody can access.
It's beautiful, beautiful. You explain a culture of learning. That's what I hear you say.
Absolutely.
Professional learning community. I hear that. You talked about clarity. So it's very clear where we're going. The vision is clear, where you're taking the people to. And so that's what you do. The mentorship, the action learning, which is a beautiful tool in developing leaders.
Yes.
So, as you said, it's the leadership team that does action learning, where they sit together and use coaching to ask questions that go beyond just their own technical area. Something that would impact the whole. It's used in the business world, in medicine, in social sciences, in education. Is a wonderful tool to develop leaders. So today I would like to leave some time for questions. So let's get ready for our questions. Questions. Now, I know there was one question there for Emeka. I can see, let me go to it. It was about, where is it now? I believe it was Uncle Jimmy Morgan, that it was about Man U still. So start getting your questions ready. Put the questions in the box and we can read out the questions. Yes, so, yes, Olujimi Morgan. Hello, Uncle. He said that Ferguson failed to name a successor. Maybe not easy in football. And accounting firms do it all the time with their bank of partners. Question is, how to apply different business, different business sectors? I'm not quite sure. Ferguson gave notice of early retirement at beginning of one session, and something underperformed until he changed his mind. Maybe you would understand what that is, Emeka. However, he didn't name a successor because it's not easy in football. Do you agree with that? How about naming a successor? And is it about naming? And I'm going to talk about that. Because when we're talking about succession planning, it's not really about naming one person immediately.
That's not the key. Yes,
that's not the objective of succession planning. If you name someone before the person is ready to take the position, it creates a lot of problems. And I'm going to talk about that. But would you like to, I don't know if you got, maybe you want to comment about that at
yes,
all?
I'm reading the question now.
Yeah.
So again, like you said, the key is not actually saying, oh, this is my successor. It's about having a team around you. So again, Ferguson was the guy at United, and there's obviously a board. He has bosses, but they left him to make all the decisions by himself. So him, and to be fair, he shouldn't be the only one to get blamed because it should have been a team effort. But what the mistake he made was he said he chose the person. And after he chose that person, like you said, that's not what the key is. That's not what we should aim to do. So he chose the individual, and after doing that, there was no like discussion with anyone. There was no due diligence. It was just about him in the sense where he saw another Scotsman. So obviously Ferguson is Scottish, He saw another Scotsman who had done well, gritty. Ferguson, he had a very, very poor upbringing. So another gritty, determined, tough Scotsman. So he saw himself, and that's all he looked at. And unfortunately, again, as a team and as a club, there was not enough due diligence done. So looking at Uncle Jimmy Morgan's question, so of course there's going to be slight differences in terms of the industries, but I think the key point is the same, because yes, you can't, yes, in a bank or whatever, it's going to be a bit different, but the main thing is not just believing that your word is the final, is the final. So there should be more due diligence. And he made a point about Ferguson one time. There was a time when he announced he was going to retire at the start of the season. This was maybe when he was a bit younger. So he announced he was going to retire. He didn't eventually retire, but he did announce that he was going to retire. And when he said that, there was a bit of underperformance in the team, because maybe there was a bit of distraction that, oh, he's going to leave and this and that. So he's wondering, maybe that's why he waited to the end of the season when he actually did retire. But I would say, again, I think he did fail in that sense in terms of the transition. And I think the results actually speak for it, because it's not a coincidence.
Yes.
Once he left, we struggled, but he shouldn't take all the blame, because the owners also have to take a bit of blame. But the issue is that he was the one that was de facto owner, because he was making all the decisions in terms of personnel, in terms of the management staff. He made all the decisions, and he chose the successor. So the brunt has to follow him.
So I like that, because some lessons there again. He brought in an external, we've been talking about external hire. Sometimes, so developing a leadership pipeline is about internal potentials, right? But sometimes you can't find them. But why can't you find them too is a question we should ask. Because when the hire is right, when you hire and you have the future in mind, you are first of all hiring people that you can groom. Is part of it. But perchance there's even nobody, maybe the people you hired left or whatever. That matching of DNA is so important. What were the considerations in bringing that person in from outside? What were the considerations? Was it just, this person is from my area, I like this person looks like can do it. But again, you also mentioned not involving a team. Usually when we're talking about succession planning, there is usually a team of people. My audience, there's usually a team of people. You raise a succession management team. It is not only the owner or the whatever that just decides on who. You work with the team. And I asked that question during the week. How many of us have succession planning or succession management teams? Yes, you wanted to say something.
Can I just make a point, just a final point on Ferguson, just going back to Mr. Olujimi Morgan's point. I think so. Another case study is Manchester City, who have won everything basically since Manchester United left, like their dominant era. Manchester City have now dominated this era, and it's because of planning. So Ferguson, again about leadership, Ferguson was 76 years old at that time, so he should have had in mind, okay, he should have taken a sad death in a family to know he was going to leave. I think there should have been a time that we're going to let it go at this point. Because Manchester City, once they had a manager, before they got in the best manager in the world now, Pep Guardiola, they had a manager. And even as that manager was there, he won a trophy, but they knew, they already spoke to this manager 2 years beforehand. And before they spoke that they had already agreed that Pep Guardiola was going to take over the job 2 years before he took over the job. And before he took over, planning. So they now fill the team with a lot of people in strategic positions that would help him succeed. So it wasn't a rushed succession. So he said that planning was there as a team. So they knew they had someone there, but they had already planned for the succession. And before that guy came in, there were already strategic moves made so that guy can be successful. Whereby Manchester United, they announced a new manager, was very, very instant. And there was, he came into the club, and the club was already, crumbling, because there was not the positions were not in place, and the things were not put in place for him to succeed.
Yeah. So can you relate that quickly? Last question for you, to how you are being groomed, because I'm still there.
Yes.
Mrs. Obafisoye, can you talk about that? Because I'm learning from what you said about Manchester United and Manchester City.
Okay, so in terms of how I've been groomed, I would say again, kudos to you, Dr. Nwani, for it's when you're in it, when I'm in it, it's sometimes I used to not really understand why you would say like, put me in certain places or make me think about certain things. But you made me, for instance, for everyone out there, I hated like numbers. Like I had to do a bit of accounting for my master's, but like I hate numbers. Of course, I have to, like, I'm very competent in that now because of my role.
Not
But like
rotation.
I used to dislike a lot of numbers, things like that. And Dr. Wani would say, go and work with the accounts department for a term. Go and work with audits for a term. I'm like, why? So boring. But now that department is reporting to me. So it's like if I didn't have that experience, I would not have any clue of what they're talking about and not really understand the numbers and the intricate details of what we're trying to achieve. So I'll say there was a lot of strategic thinking that I don't know if everyone does, and not because they're not able to or because they don't think it's important. It's just it takes a lot of intentionality to
Intentional.
realize that, okay, this is someone I'm grooming, whether as a family member or again someone like Mr. Obafisoye that has become, this is a family member, but like she did her own path. And okay, I know Emeka is not the best with numbers and accounting, so let him go and work with them for a bit. He's great with marketing. He's great in managing people. Okay, so
HR.
he can do that. He can do that, but okay, let's focus on a bit of the weaknesses for a bit. So when he now gets into this position and all the audits people are reporting to him and they're telling him different things, the accounts people are reporting to him, he has an idea of what they're talking about. So I credit you for that intentionality, for making me, even like social media. My first job in Meadow Hall was social media accounts, and now I'm managing, and the marketing team is reporting to me. So it just almost like full circle from 2015. And now those departments that I did work with when I was growing in the business are now reporting to me. So it's almost like she knew that this was exactly the path I was meant to take, and it's helped my own personality plus the skills I've acquired with my courses, my training, and like my own personal skills that I'm good at in terms of managing people, working with people, solving problems, being a very, very logical thinker. But when I'm now seeing these departments reporting to me, it's very I always just credit her all the time because it's like, how did you realize that, working with this department for a term would be so great for your development? And it worked out great.
Thank you very much. Intentionality, I think, is key, as you've mentioned, being intentional. Ferguson at 76 didn't have a plan. So just having a plan is important. Mrs. Obafisoye, a few last one. Okay, so we're out of time. I want to ask both of you just one last question. What have you learned, Emeka? What have you, anything that you feel, part of your learning journey that was like a failure? You say it all the time. Failure is a bruise, not a tattoo. So what could you talk about, just something? And then I ask Mr. Obafisoye, and then we take questions.
Okay, I think for me, the biggest, and I don't want to call it failure anymore because it was a great learning experience for me in terms of what I have to do with change management and having to change different processes. So there was a brief time where we had to implement like biometrics in Meadow Hall, and I was so excited about it. I wanted to just launch it because it was my thing. I love tech, and we brought it in, and it just didn't work as planned. There were queues. It wasn't working properly. Parents were obviously frustrated, and I just launched it to the whole school. I didn't think like, okay, why don't you just launch it in small target market segments, this and that. And that was my mistake. And I remember that day I wanted the ground to swallow me up because I brought this thing in. I said I wanted to make an impact, and I brought this thing in, and it didn't work out. And you came, the CEO came downstairs, managed the Mr. Obafisoye, they came, managed the parents. But for me, that taught me then anything I'm doing for change management, especially, you have to educate the audience and your target market why you're making a change, what the benefits are to the change, and you also then have to use it, in smaller spaces before you then launch it to the whole school. So I think that was one moment that really sticks out to me, that I've actually tried to do something with great intentions, but I failed at it. But it taught me well in the long run.
Thank you. Well. I remember that day, and great learning from it. Amazing. Ms. Obafisoye, any area that that, this was you know, failure in a way, well, we know what failure is and what is not, right? So, and what you learned from it. Can you quickly?
Well, I think I can sum mine up as a leader without followers is just a man or a woman taking a walk in a leisure park. You know, so I've learned that you need your people. You need your people. You need the strong, you need the not so strong. You know, you need the able, you need the not so able. You know, like I said, when I started off, I did not focus on people. My focus was on things. I focused on the things that we had to do, all our achievables, and that was all. You know, but I've learned that it's all about the people. You cannot, however good a tree is, it remains a tree. It never forests.
Absolutely. I say it all the time. People are my greatest asset. And honestly, I'm glad that the people that work with me also understand that. So we have come to the end of the summit. Can I have the questions out? I want some questions I want people to reflect on, while I look at the questions and see which ones we can answer. Can I have the reflective questions of Mr. Abayomi? Yeah. So we have come to the end of the summit, and I hope you've all enjoyed it as much as I have. Yeah. Okay. So how has the summit been for you? Honestly, I don't even need you to put in the chat box. If you have a phone or a sheet of paper, write it and go and answer this. How has the summit been for you? Two, having listened to 7 different speakers, thought leaders, what 5 nuggets are you taking away from this summit? Third question. How do you intend to implement what you have learned from this summit? The fourth question. What specific actions or steps will you take to integrate the knowledge from this summit into your organization on succession planning? Number 5, can you identify any potential areas for improvement in your current organization based on the insights gained from this summit? Number 6, how do you plan to share or communicate the key takeaways from this summit with your colleagues, associates, and boss? I have put together a mastermind. The mastermind starts in April, and it's the progression after this summit. You have heard a lot. Now the question is how? How do I actually go about developing this leadership pipeline? I've exposed you to people who have built leadership pipelines. I've also brought in people who are part of such a leadership pipeline. So you've seen it from both sides. How exactly do we do it? And that's what the mastermind is about. The mastermind will be on for 2 good months, for 8 Saturdays, when we look at step by step how to attract, develop, retain the best staff, how to then begin to develop what learning, what trainings, how do you do the mentorship, the job rotations, like Emeka mentioned, how do you go step by step to develop your potential successors? And then, do you have a succession plan that is well crafted, a document? Once you have all that, you're good to go. That means you understand that success is not just about achieving your vision, it's about having, the supportive environment to ensure that your organization continues for a long time. I hope we have been, honestly, I just feel empty. I feel I've poured out myself, and I feel so blessed to have been able to do this. Any question that I haven't really answered? I can see comments. I'm not sure I have seen questions like that. Thank you for all your commendations. Any question that stands out? That's why I organize myself. Yes, so the link, Mr. Abayomi would put the link to registering for the mastermind. I think it's in the chat box right now. And also you can book for calls if you want to know a bit more before you register for the mastermind. All right. All right, then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. God bless you. Go out and shine.